Ah, Once again, welcome to this episode of Personal Selling Weekly. Today, we will talk about something which really have kept my focus and interest for now more than 25 years. And that's the whole nonverbal part of the communication. I think the first time I really realized the power of this was back in the late 90s, where I was working with selling ingredients for the food industry. And for some years, I had been developing quite a nice business with a producer of infant food here in Denmark. And at a certain time, they got a new purchasing manager. And of course, he wanted to prove his worth. So he started to push on prices. And he was asking us and some of our competitors and was, playing back and forth until the point where our supplier said that, okay, we will give you one more price, Henrik, and this is our final price. But you can only give the price to the customer on one condition. I said, oh, yes, what is that? You have to go there to his office and then give the price in his office to his face. And then he can either accept it or not. We don't want him to take this price and bring it to the competitor to push us even further. So, okay, fair enough. So I called the customer and said, hi, Jacob, I have a final price for you. And then, of course, he lighted up in the phone. I could hear his voice. Say, oh, what is it? I said, there is a catch. I'm only allowed to give you this price face-to-face in your office. And when you have gotten the price, you can either say yes or no. We will not give you 1, 2, 3 days to think about it. So if that's okay for you, then I would be happy to come by and give you the price. And of course, this sparked some curiosity in him because, okay, what is it? So he said, yeah, okay, you can come to my office this afternoon at 2:00. And I showed up. And after, the few minutes, small talk and conversation, we came into the actual subject of the meeting. And he said, okay, so what is your price for these maltodextrins? And then I said, our best price is $2.85. And just right there in that moment when I said the price, I could see a small smile came over his mouth. And then I just spontaneously and said, wow, thank you for the order. And then he was a little surprised, but I think unconsciously he realized that he had already signaled, wow, that's a good price. And then he said, okay, thank you. Okay, yeah, let's do the deal. And then we moved on. I'm really, really pretty sure that if I hadn't, in a way, reacted in that moment, there would have been a big chance that he would have said, not any better than that. And then he would basically have talked himself out of a very good deal. That was basically his profile. So knowing how to pick up these small answers, nonverbal answers, is really, really powerful. And this is what we will be talking about today, how you can start to access more of that information. Why is nonverbal communication so crucial when it comes to B2B sales or any sales for that matters? And for me, again, maybe being a little provocative is simply because most people are lying many times during a day. And you could say also in B2B sales, especially when you come to price negotiation, people have different agendas. So they will not always be totally truthful. I'm not talking about big evil lies, but I'm talking about people maybe not willing, or maybe they don't feel that it serves their best interest to be really honest with you. So again, if you want to be able to access more honest information, knowing how to uncode or decode the nonverbal signals, I think is really a very useful route to that means. So if you want to be better at really getting, I think, data that are closer to the truth, then you need to understand the nonverbal cues. Often when I train salespeople, I ask them, wow, are you listening for the first or the second answer? And then, of course, always, they get a little confused and say, well, what do you mean by that? And what I mean is that when you ask a question, you will always get at least 2 answers. You will first get this nonverbal response, and then you will get a verbal response. And if you are waiting and not paying attention until you get the verbal response, there's a very big chance that you will miss out of very useful data and information. And the reason why this is the case is that people, if you say something to them, your sound waves will go to them, into their ears, into the part of the brain called amygdala. From there, a signal is sent out to the body that then will do something, while another signal will go into the neocortex, where they will formulate a verbal answer that will come out of their mouth 2/5 or 3/5 of a second after the body have non-verbally answered. So you can say that you always first get a signal from the body, and then you get a verbal answer. And again, your ability to compare those two answers is crucial if you want to be effective as a communicator in B2B sales. So now you could ask yourself, so how do I actually get access to these non-verbal answers? And I would say that some of it, I think, you already do intuitively today. But I think as a professional communicator, there's a big value in knowing how you know what you know, not just acting intuitively. As I typically say, it's pretty okay to be conscious when you're at work. So what I typically advise people to do is to, in the beginning of a meeting, ask some close questions where there's nothing at stake for the customer. And it could be close question as, so are you responsible for the project? And then see what they do and hear their answer. So you ask basically a number of close questions which will lead the customer to show yes and say yes. And when you have done this 3-4 times, you will start to be able to pick up the pattern of what the customer is actually doing to say yes. So what is the nonverbal somatic strategy or response which come before the actual yes? And then do the same for no. So that in the beginning of the meeting, you, in a way, you tune in on the customer's yes and no signals, because they can come in handy later in the meeting when you want to ask some crucial question where you actually need the customer's honest answer so that you know where to take this project next. So again, it's really about paying attention to what the customer is doing. You can pay attention to their eyes. You can pay attention to how they position themselves, how they move their hands. Sometimes customers show by the use of their hand where they place the past and the future. Maybe they can even show you what a good solution is compared to a bad solution. So again, people are doing this really outside their own awareness all the time. The trick is to be able to sort out so that you can sort the noise from the actual signal, so that you're not just being confused. During my career, I think I have had a lot of the experiences where these non-verbal pre-language answers have really made a significant impact on what I have been able to do with people. I have used it in sales. I have also used it in coaching, especially when it comes to coaching people, understanding what signals they have for their real dream compared to what they think they need can help you actually keep the person focused on what they really need and what they really want. And again, it will help you confuse them less than before you met them. I think, and if you don't pick up these signals, then again, there's a big chance that you will be confused, but also they will be confused. And the same thing is also true when you interact with a customer. If you can really notice where they are looking when they think about different things, where they are how they're using their hands. So, but we have worked with this up until now, but now we want a better solution. So if you know where the customer is putting it by showing his hand where they actually put it, the more you can reference those points in your communication and help the customer actually arrive at where they want to go so that they don't get stuck in their present situation. If you want to start to practice this and train, I think there's a small tool from the NLP toolbox I would recommend that you start out looking into, because it's a simple way to start. And that's the idea Bandler uncovered already now, I think more than 30 years ago. Maybe, I think actually it was back in the 70s, where he realized that when people remember pictures, they look up there. When they construct pictures, they look up here. When people remember sounds, they look out to the side. When they construct sound, they look out here. When people are thinking about emotions, they look down here. When they have self-talk, they look down here. And I think this is true for 90% of the population. The 10% is what we call reversed wired, so that is it reversed. So simply by going in and asking customers, so how did the previous solution look like? And then see if they do this. Of course, if they do this, they are reversed wired. So simply asking questions about what visual memory they have, what auditory memory they have, how they feel about it, or what they were saying to themselves. Asking questions like that can help you calibrate where the customer moved their eyes as a response of how you ask your questions. So I think this is a small and easy way where you can start to actually play with this and practice. I would also say that looking at the news, maybe turning down the sound, would also give you some insight, looking at the person being interviewed, see what are they actually doing, and are there some patterns? Are there something which happens more than once? I have this rule that if I see a signal once, it can be a pure coincidence. But if I see the same signal twice as a consequence of the same stimuli, it catches my attention. When I see it the third time, I'm willing to regard it as a pattern, something which carry information. So I think also, again, what you can do, if you have the equipment to do it, sometimes it becomes easier to recognize these patterns if you play a video faster, because then it's more easy to pick up those patterns. So that can also be a way to actually practice it. So I hope this have evoked some interest in the nonverbal part of communication. For me, I have been so fascinated about this that I actually called my company Acuity World, because having sensory acuity is actually describing the capability of picking up some of these more subtle signals people are sending. And again, go out, play with it, start to notice, and then, of course, come back next week, and then we will share some new ideas with you. So again, if you like to be reminded of these videos, go and subscribe, and then we see each other next week. Have a great week.